So guys, thanks a lot for joining this small session on just understanding why big companies get customer experience wrong, which is a very important topic in today's digital. Trying to capture the market basically again. So I'm not going to repeat those things which we learned in the SPJIMR curriculum actually. This is just a very simple session. I made it a very simple slides for you just to make you understand and emphasize on certain important things. In today's digital world, basically something revolving around the data actually, because data is going to be the next big thing actually. That's going to be the next I think the fourth industrial revolution. I think you guys must have heard how good we are as data custodians, how we good are at data architecture. Basically, are we considering data architecture as a strategic business process or not? So Majri, if you can unmute the guys, maybe somebody is requested. Raj is just requested. Okay. So basically, I hope all of you agree that smart companies basically treat their customers in some pretty bad ways. This is not just actually my point of view, but maybe some of you are also thinking after you complete a purchase or you try to basically do some surfing with an intention to buy something actually, but so you feel that okay, what type of company is this? It's not even able to gauge actually and assess actually what I need, what is the business need, what is the requirement actually. So most of the companies, and even in today's world, basically they actually treat basically customers in pretty bad ways, which leads basically to customer frustration and again losing the prospects. Basically their marketers, basically the guys who are doing their marketing, selling, basically they without creating any value for the potential buyer, the prospect, which ultimately basically makes the person lose interest actually towards the product or a service actually. The sales challenge actually which I've been seeing in industries. I come with industry background actually, 20 years in oil and gas, and now basically from the technology side actually. So I understand the business world and I understand the technology world. When you are talking to the sales people in the board meetings or in the sales and operations planning meeting, basically there is a total disconnect with the 360-degree visibility about there's an operation planning meeting, SOP planning meetings, there's supply chain planning meetings, whatever actually, right? They are not having a complete 360-degree view of their customers actually, right? That how much is the amount of money they spend over a period of say a quarter or say an year actually or something like that. So basically they're basically actually not utilizing data as an asset actually, which is by the way one of the fundamental principles actually, one of the architecture principles from data architecture. If you guys understand enterprise architecture and if you know the different architecture principles, including a business architecture, data architecture, application architecture, and technology architecture, one of the foundation principles of data architecture is basically data is an asset actually. That's something which I want to emphasize today. The customer service agents irritate customers by asking them questions they have answered 3 times over and over again actually, and that actually frustrates the customer. That what type of company is this, right? They don't even know actually, even say there is some problem either in the residential address. Even I've seen companies, they mistype or I don't of a company actually comes with that if a company is not even billing the customer properly by writing a wrong name on the invoice or in the bill actually or on the cash memo, that actually irritates the customer actually, and the customer carries a feeling that when an organization does not even know how to capture my name and the attributes actually actually, right, and they're very volatile. Volatility with customer purchase has increased tremendously. People change their mind, customers change their mind over a fly actually, just at the nick time of even making the customers. You know, actually we have been buying so many things on a day-to-day life, maybe a car, maybe a TV, maybe whatever actually. We are all experienced, we have experienced it over and over again, that how painful and how frustrating it is basically, even when you're buying say a health insurance policy. I'll give you my example actually. Last year I actually ensure that agent basically, who happens to be a good friend of mine, most of the things were actually not honored by them, right? And it actually frustrates you. You feel mistakes, I will say, basically committed at their side for data capture actually, right? And which actually ultimately led to a very bad experience with this, and I'm actually thinking to take a refund actually of my health insurance policy, right? So this is something which is very painful, and I think it doesn't need any more explanation. We are all customers in today's world, keep on buying so many things a day, so it's very painful thing. So now let's understand basically what are the reasons for that actually. So why do smart companies going on in the telecom world actually, with the especially in India actually, with Jio as a new participant, as a new entrant in the market, basically challenge for most of the companies, whatever industry it is, whether it is FMCG, it is oil and gas, it is telecom, it is banking, more it is retention is strong, so that you are able to upsell and cross sell the customer basically with the right product at the right time. So what you can say, so many people would say basically that no one in the enterprise actually cares about fixing these problems, but that's really true, because there are respective departments actually which have been created, right? So there is an IT department which cares about the IT infrastructure. There is a business analysis department. There's a strategy department. There's a design department. All the departments are working basically in some companies maybe in silos, but again in today's world they are all networked. There is a high level of collaboration. If you compare today's world with the last maybe over 2 to 3 decades, a lot of things have changed actually. Right. So it's not that basically that nobody actually cares in the enterprise. There are, so some part of that is true basically. You could also say that the exponential growth of applications basically which have come in today, and the market do that may be partially may be true, because the application landscape has become too complex. So unnecessarily so many applications are being brought in by enterprises to capture data, to process data, because applications are nothing but they are carriers of data actually, right? So that's probably true, but it doesn't explain everything. So there is a deeper reason to that actually. So let's just investigate and see what intention. Smartest companies do so many disappointing things basically is because their data isn't customer ready. That is the problem. So today the thinking is basically designed for data, and right, data is an asset, right? So let me at this point actually, maybe people who come with the enterprise architecture background who understand data architecture basically. So there are certain fundamental principles basically around data. For example, the first one is data is an asset. Those companies today will be successful tomorrow, those who are basically good custodians of their data, right? And if you go back and actually analyze a statement from the CEO of Cisco, John Chambers, who said that 60% of the companies which are operating today, they will cease to exist by 2020 or 22. And one of the reasons for that will be basically, again, so the digital revolution is there. That is why IoT is coming, digital technologies are coming. There is a lot of convergence. Basically, there is a lot of disruption. Artificial intelligence is coming, right? Cognitive computing. All these emerging technologies are coming actually. But main reason is basically the poor data management and actually governance. So it talks about basically data. So you have to be a good data custodian of your customer's data. It's not only about your customer data. It is your entire enterprise data, whether it is your physical assets basically, or is it's your SKU numbers, it's your pricing, whatever. So whatever is the data in the binary form, everything has to be properly managed and rightly architected. So data is an asset is one principle. Data must be shared is another data architecture principle. Data is accessible to all. That is another architecture principle for data architecture. There have to be data trustees basically who actually take the accountability basically for the data quality. Now, one important thing which you need to understand in today's world is basically in the past 15-20 years after implementation of ERP systems worldwide, most of the companies have already gone for it. Now, you see the emphasis basically, or see the ERP systems are actually not the flavor anymore. The main challenge is data, because data is now growing at the speed of the data. Enterprise data is doubling at an average speed of 2.5 to 3 years, right, for an average company. This is as per research from companies like Gartner and Forrester actually. So just compare the speed of data. Some 15-16 years back, data was doubling at the rate of 8 years. Every 7-8 years, the data was doubling. Then by 2009 or 10, it came to actually maybe 5 to 6 years. Now every 2 to 3 years, the enterprise data is doubling. Data is going to be the main differentiator going forward for all the companies. So there have to be data trustees. There have to be right guys basically who take the accountability for the data quality, for the duplication of SKU numbers, for the duplication of customer numbers. You see, there are so many things going on, right? And then there has to be a common vocabulary, and then data definitions, and the last thing is basically the data security, right? You have to protect your data. This is the point I just want to emphasize. It's all fragmented. Data is fragmented in today's world. In most of the companies, it's siloed. It's residing into different Excel files, different IT systems. Some of them are disconnected. Some of them are standalone systems. They are inconsistent, old platforms. They are out of date. Some of them are not even getting support from their vendors or suppliers. They are all this error field, right? And it all creates mess basically. So whatever junk goes in the ERP system comes out as a junk in the analytics reports basically, because analytics runs on the data from your ERP system actually. So if companies are not careful about the data quality, about the data governance, basically the reports, analytics based on which their decision making is going to happen basically will be useless basically, right? So data basically should be properly managed, should be properly curated, so there have to be proper data custodians. The result of this mess is that the smartest people can't access enough data about customer relationships to give customers the experiences they deserve actually, right? So the same customer might be buying your products and services for the past 5 years, but because the properties are not captured in a system, right? So you really know you are unable to actually chalk out whether this is the same customer which has come to buy something again, and there you can leverage actually through better offers, through a better loyalty type of program and so on. So that is the problem basically, because data is not being captured at the point of transaction actually, because right. So that's amazing. So without great data, basically great customer experiences are the exception, right? So maybe in some of the companies, so despite having all these policies, basically still it is being managed. So that may be exceptions, but that's not a rule actually. So great data is something which is required in today's world to be successful, even for a small company. So how do companies try to solve customer experience problem actually, right? So let's look at the 3 major missteps that most of the big enterprises basically they make. When I say big means, so they are of considerable size, they have a large customer base basically, and why they fail basically short of solving the real problem, right? So again, you can evoke here the principles of design thinking. Actually, you need to discover and describe the issue actually, all right? Just to give you some examples of actually customer journey in our day-to-day life basically. For example, typically buying a high value item online, typically when you buy some say high-end watch actually, or a mobile phone online, just leveling a loan from any bank or something like that, renting a house, ordering food over phone, otherwise taking some bus journey, hotel experience. These are all services. Planning a holiday, availing broadband connection, filing of income tax returns. Now just imagine if the data being captured by the tax authorities is wrong, or if it is not correct about you, and just imagine if a bank after this demonetization has actually given income tax authorities a wrong data or a wrong PAN number. So you see, so a right person might have got basically a notice from income tax authorities for depositing a large amount of cash. That's the importance of data basically, right? So again, these are all services. Typically, I have highlighted the vehicle servicing, which is a day-to-day problem with most of us. Whenever we go for the vehicle servicing, actually with the car vendor or actually whatever service provider, actually that's the most painful point in India, at least as I've seen actually, maybe worldwide, right? So again, taking a cable connection, visit to a dentist. So let's understand basically what is the customer journey. I'm just giving an example basically how the customer journeys should be plotted and then monitored by companies. It's a plot between your positive experiences and negative experiences of customer vis-a-vis the time frame actually. Here I'm giving an example typically for a customer who wants to purchase a vehicle, a car. After the person's vehicle actually breaks down, so the car is an engine failure, and you see the person rejudges the model. So you see the ones in the green, they're all positive experiences. The ones in the red is ultimately this customer experience, if it is monitored and cared properly, this is going to actually generate a lot of leads for you actually, right? So companies, and for this customer journey, you need the data actually, and at every transaction point which is represented by the node, there is a data, there is a free floating data. So data has to be captured actually. That is the main thing actually which generates your customer journey in today's world. Let's see 3 missteps, and then I think we can go towards the later part of the session. So first misstep is basically throw more applications at the problem. The moment actually the sales team or the marketing team actually listens from the field staff or your marketing channels, right? So they still actually go and then think of designing some applications. Okay, let's launch some new maybe apps on the mobile phones, give some some web-based applications for reaching out to the customer. That's not the real way actually to actually connect to the customer. You need to rightly architect it basically, right? So there are some amazing applications out there. So maybe tens and thousands of them actually in today's world. Typically in a telco actually I was working, I saw that the application architecture involves around more than 5,400 different applications worldwide. Just imagine the amount of data which gets captured in these applications and the amount of data which is not able to freely flow between the applications because of a faulty application architecture actually, right? There are thousands and hundreds of vendors basically, right? So again, if we are not integrating the data carefully, basically, if we are not intelligently managing the data, it is of no use actually, right? So data management, basically data has to be treated like a strategic business process. Typically, just like manufacturing, marketing, sales, finance, HR, whatever are your standard functions in a company, they are managed like your typical business functions. Same way, data management also basically needs to be managed as a strategic business process. Then only it is going to give you the advantage and the strength basically to leverage your visibility about the customer parameters, use it, and so that you can again then retain the customer and then keep on selling the customer so many different products. All right. So that is something which I wanted to emphasize basically. So great data actually, so if organizations are actually having great data, they can base their business decisions, their marketing decisions, basically the discounts, whatever actually promotions, everything based on that actually. So first step is that don't throw more applications at the problem, rather spend time in discovering and describing the problem using design thinking principles. Go to the root cause, basically what is the root cause? I think most of you will discover that it is the poor data architecture actually which is responsible for this. And we need to take corrective action for that. Second misstep is trying to manage the data manually actually, right? So this is again a major thing which is still going on in actually most of the enterprises. As I told you, most of the systems are disconnected, right? They are standalone systems. They are working in standalone Excel files, spreadsheet, whatever actually. So right. But now in today's world with IoT type of concepts coming, there is a huge amount of data which is coming from transducers, sensors. There is a data streaming basically through your social apps. There are so many myriad basically sources of data that it makes life of decision makers quite complex basically, right? So trying to manually actually managing the data to make it clean and integrating it is basically a thankless job, and it is going to create further problems actually. So we need to mitigate this by right data architecture and by having data management as a strategic business process. That's the point I want to highlight, right? Right. So manual data consuming actually curating actually is a thankless job, as I told you, and it takes a lot of time. It's prone to errors basically, and again there is no end to it, because tomorrow if a customer changes the address, or if a customer changes the mobile number or any of the say email IDs, then again you have to do it manually actually, right? So basically you need to avoid basically managing your data as much as possible. You need to see that the data gets captured automatically by your sensors, by your transducers, by your different applications, right? It gets curated, right? It gets cleaned actually. Then it comes to, so again, whatever are your transaction, it needs to be cleaned basically, right? So fixing your data in one place and the issues spread across the rest of the organizations remain actually, right? So again, to mitigate these challenges, basically you need to just have a right data architecture in place so that your data moves freely between your different points of generation and different points of sharing actually. Third step, the last one, is basically fixing the data once. So again, data is something which has to be continuously managed, basically governed, right? So that's not end of it, that you have to do it only once. So data needs to be curated, basically data needs to be basically managed on a continuous basis, right? Now you must have seen typically in FMCG companies or in the white goods company, whatever actually typically in your retail segment, there is a heavy amount of data which gets change basically. So there is a dynamic data, there is a static data actually, right? So while the static data may remain same, right, the dynamic data keeps on changing. The dynamic data classification can be typically your address number or address typically, or your phone number, or maybe your email ID, something like that, right? So even if you manually clean and actually connect your data in one go, the amount of new data actually which you are going to generate from your different customers, it is going to be a headache actually for you if you are not managing it properly through automated systems and through the right data architecture. So again, don't think that fixing the data is a one-time effort. You have to create a separate strategic business process for data management so that it is done actually round the clock throughout the year actually. It's not a one-time activity basically, right? Because the amount of data, as I told you, is actually doubling now every 2.5 to 3 years. Going forward, data management is going to be a strategic basically area for most of the enterprises, and organizations who can take out some money actually and then actually plan for right data management will be the winners actually, right? So this is something which I wanted to highlight. Basically, companies are taking it lightly, but the amount of data load which is coming going forward, right, that is going to be the main challenge for most of the companies actually. So if you are getting it right and our customer experience are good actually, right, so then it is good basically. So you are informed, they are timely, they are relevant, they are compelling, they are personal actually, right? If you get it wrong, and the shiniest applications of one can't help basically to the smarter thing. Basically, so there is no escape. Data has to be properly, again, as I told you, rightly identified. Data architecture has to be rightly done. This is one of the main things I've seen in most of the companies, that without even working on the data architecture, they directly go to select the applications. If people coming from the enterprise architecture background, if you understand that TOGAF enterprise architecture framework, the data architecture basically is a part of your application architecture, which is the phase C. And along with that comes your application architecture as a part of the phase C. They are subordinate and they are subject to business architecture on the top. So first you need to basically refine and define your business architecture. After that, immediately you need to come to your data architecture to see actually whether you need to do new data modeling, right? What are the different parameters you need to capture for the data, right? You have to define the properties, and then using the data architecture, then the next step is basically to design the right applications. And the last step is to use the right technology actually which will support these applications and data architecture. That is the right way basically to architect a company. It's not that directly you can go to the shiniest application in the world, go to the mobile world, actually go and launch the mobile app. It never helps actually. You are creating more clutter for the customer actually. You are confusing the customer will get disconnected basically, so the customer experience will be poor basically. So the bottom line is that being customer ready means having great data in the right apps at the right time, right? And for that you need right architecture principles. It means knowing at the little things that make a big difference actually. That is the main thing. You have to go deep dive into the problem basically, find actually, right, discover first, describe it, right, and then take it forward. Now one more thing actually, it's actually just an example I am just showing here. That the Jackie actually who bought those shoes online is the same person, Jacqueline actually, who's actually returning them. And most of the organizations, they fail to recognize that this is the same customer which bought say some 45 days, 1 month back actually, and it's coming back to return the shoes. You see, if you know that, if you discover this point, then there will be a lot of things you can do for your relationship management actually. That the company or B2B sales team is pitching to is full of customers of your consumer products. You see, so your job becomes easy. If you are a part of your B2B sales team, you are going to a big organization actually, and there you see that okay, the decision makers or you see they are already using your products. So it makes, if you know this fact, then connecting them and selling to them becomes much easier for you actually. That is something which most of the companies do mistakes. That the recipient of a happy cheerful marketing email is currently screaming at customer service. You are sending a flashy mail to a customer attracting for a new product or service, but again you fail to recognize basically because of a disconnect with the customer that the customer is still screaming for a deficiency in service basically, right? So you need to have a 360-degree view of the customer. You need to get the real customer experience with your company, with your product or service. What are the pain points? What are the good points? What are the positive experiences? What are the negative experiences? Once these things are clear to you, then only you will be able to convert this to a better product or a service design actually. That makes a fundamental basically entry point to any of your product design, service design, even a marketing channel design, I will say, right? The George is a loyal customer in London but gets treated like a brand new one in New York. You see, if an organization knows that this is the same George who bought say an Apple Mac in London, right, and the guys again actually come to buy some other product of Apple at New York, things will be different actually, right? So companies need to rightly architect their data properties basically, maybe the customer name, the customer number, the contact number, the contact numbers, the email IDs, some other confidential whatever, right? So this is something which is another thing that the chairman just brought a new TV, so she shouldn't be shown offers for the more new TVs. That is something wrong. We assume it actually. Maybe the customer has come again to buy something new. So assumptions are something which need to be validated actually, and this can only happen when we have the right data about the customer, the buying preferences, right? What are the different parameters? What are the service experiences? Most of the companies nowadays, if you see when you go for servicing of a car, typically say I have a Honda vehicle actually, so I actually get a feedback mail, but we are very poor in responding to the feedback mail. Typically when you fly any airline actually, right, they actually generally send you your customer feedback type of form, which actually I think the response rate is hardly as low as to 1 or 2-3%. Now I think if a customer wants a better service from any service provider or any product company, the fundamental thing the customer should do is basically give the complete data as much as possible, right? So considering the security concerns to the company so that the customer gets better served. Companies will not be able to serve you better if you hide or if you are not able to give the right data to the organization. Typically, there is your email IDs. If there's a new product launch, right? So they can reach out to you on your mail ID. So typically, try to give your data basically so that you can be contacted. Try to share your experiences, because this is basically, see, for companies this is a continuous improvement type of activity actually. Based on your feedback only, there will be improvement in the services and products. All right. So it means giving your smartest people the data they need to make smarter decisions. So that is the key thing. Basically, I want to highlight that we need to have the right data architecture. We need to rightly design it before anything, before going to the application architecture and before going to the technology architecture. You need to first work on your data architecture, which is subordinate to business architecture. So on the top comes your business architecture, your operating model, your business model. That decides your data architecture, that governs your application architecture, and that governs your technology architecture. That is the right way to architect any enterprise. For smart companies to make sure they'll be making smart about the way they treat their customers, they need to have a clean, consistent, and connected view of total customer relationship. That's what I have been emphasizing basically. So again, to have a strong customer relationship, create a 360-degree view of the customer, starting from the prospect stage to the actual sale or buying actually, followed by servicing, and then following by discardal of the product basically, or the salvage. Right, there are a lot of buyback options you can create. Basically, you can create a revenue stream actually through your salvage operations. Right, so a lot of things can be done if data is there. Data makes the company king basically. But the effort does not end here. There is something more actually. We need to know what we need to get great data to fuel a business, but traditional approaches make it too hard. Basically, it takes too long and are not repeatable. Basically, repeatability is something which is the keyword today, and repeatability comes only from architecture. Things will be repeatable only when they are stable actually, when they are transparent. So transparency, and actually you see when they are rightly defined, that means they are rightly architected. When building blocks have been assembled into the right place, right? Each data problem is treated in isolation in today's world. I have seen still in the advanced companies basically, right? And traditional approaches are still followed basically, which just don't work anymore actually. If companies are not going to change attending to the data, they are going to be the losers. And I see full merit in John Chambers' statement that more than 60% of the companies will cease to exist by 2020 or 22, right? And the main culprit will be poor data management actually. These are some of the challenges basically we should avoid. Avoid hand coding of data. Basically, it takes too long. It is not scalable. It is prone to errors. Basically, relying on scarce developer staff. It is too expensive. You are totally dependent on some other stakeholders, right? And developers use a tool of their choice. This is again a big risk. It's great for developers, but again not for the company when they quit. These are certain fallacies. Basically, these are certain traps. Basically, we should avoid in managing the data. So a new approach is needed basically, one that makes data management a core business capability. So define data management capability as a strategic area of business for your company. And that data management capability is going to manage your entire enterprise data, whether it's employee number, SKU number, customer number, product number, anything actually, anything related to data, whether it is fixed assets, whether it is the number of chairs, whether it is the number of passengers, whether it is the number of aircrafts, whether it is the pricing, right? Anything in numbers should be managed as a strategic business capability. Then only it is going to lay a foolproof foundation for the company in future actually, right? One that enables you to deliver great data. So data that is clean, that is safe, that is connected to every person, application, or process in a timely fashion. That is basically, I'm talking about the right data architecture actually. So you need automated data. I'll just take another 5 minutes and then we can open it for the question answer round. We need data which is automated, which gets generated, captured, curated, you see, filtered, cleansed automatically, and then governed automatically, which is repeated, which is available anywhere, which is available anytime to the right person. So that's all about the data management in today's world. That can only come by right data architecture. Now let's see the 3 considerations for designing great data for the enterprises. Number 1, from siloed projects move to enterprise data management, right? So the moment you see any spreadsheets, standalone applications, standalone systems working to each other, and then you are making people sit actually after the office hours to transfer the data from one system to another, that's a danger sign. You see, that's the reason the slide is in red actually, right? An enterprise data management architecture is the only way to deliver the right data to any process person or application on a continual basis. I am again emphasizing on right data architecture, considering data management as a strategic business process management area actually, right? How to get there? We can get there by standardizing on common data management technologies and approaches, modernizing your data management environment using the latest technologies, optimizing using a true hybrid platform. So again, services oriented platform, basically a lot of things have actually come up now. The new technologies are there which are not there some 2 decades back. Actually there's a huge amount of research going on, right? Second is give users self-service. This, by the way, is another architecture principle from the TOGAF. Basically it's called a self-service oriented architecture, right? Give users self-service as much as possible. Let them be served at their own choice. And the era of IT being the bottleneck, don't depend on IT guys. Give the controls in the hand of users. Let your data scientists and business analysts access trusted and timely data themselves by building self-service into your data management architecture. That is something which your architects need to define, and that can only be done when you have a right enterprise architecture capability in your organizations. Now you will question me that who is going to do the data architecture? The data architecture will be done by the data architect. And the data architect should be a person who is expert in data management, who is also expert in the business line. For example, if you are doing a data architecture for an FMCG company like Hindustan Unilever or say a Dabur or whatever, actually the guy should know actually what are the different items on sale, what are the SKUs, where are they being manufactured, what are the properties, what are the, you see, so the person needs to have that industry experience. That is the reason basically organizations, mostly banks I've seen, right, most of the telecom companies towards the European and the American continents, they have gone for a formal enterprise architect position in their organizations, who is directly reporting to the board and to the CEO in some cases. You need to have right data architects, you need to have right enterprise architects who can do it for you. This you can do actually by giving them intelligent recommendations for further data refinement and preparation, easy ways to share reviews, ratings and advice with each other, easy to find reusable building blocks. Beauty of architecture is in building blocks. Once you are able to identify a building block, for example, a customer is a building block of a business, right? An asset is a building block of a business. A process is a building block of a business. An application is a building block for a business. A technology is a building block for a business. It talks about POLDAT. P for processes, O for organogram, the way you are organized, L for location architecture, the locations where you manufacture, where you store, where you sell, and then DAT means data application technology. So POLDAT, these 6 are the building blocks for any enterprise worldwide. If you are able to architect your enterprise rightly by connecting these building blocks, right? You see, nobody can fail it actually. So if done rightly, you can still track what users are using and creating and monitoring for the data governance. The last activity basically will be the data governance, of course. So data monitoring and data governance becomes a very important thing. That is the reason I foresee that going forward, master data management, data quality, data governance, they are going to be the key areas for actually business and for employment actually for the IT and the non-IT professionals. There is going to be a huge demand of your data management professionals who are catering to these 3 areas, because data is everywhere, but it is not of good quality, it is not governed properly, there are a lot of duplication in that, right, and it is not giving you the right leverage basically to use it for an advantage basically. So right, so that is going to be the challenge of most of the companies. The third and the last one is basically reduce technology adoption complexity basically, right. You'll never know actually what the next data explosion brings actually, I'm telling you. So I am sure by 2022 or 25, as per the articles I read and as per the projection from Gartner and Forrester, big companies typically like Apple and Samsung and all these big sellers basically, right, data is going to double maybe at a rate of every 1 year. And the amount of data actually, you can't imagine what is the amount of data. And you can't throw your data actually outside your premises. There has to be a data archival strategy also for that, right? And especially with the concepts like blockchain now coming, actually blockchain, the major impediment is the data archival option is not there in blockchain. It's not possible to remove a block from the blockchain once it is used actually, right, because of the design of the blockchain. So that is another challenge actually which is going to come in future, right? So the next data explosion will be huge. Those organizations will be successful and will be able to survive, those who are having the ability to manage their data properly actually as per the right architecture. This you can do basically, so again by lowering your actually learning and adoption curve, again by using a modern visual design and development approach, right, deploying tools that intelligently manage and optimize how to access the data. The second point is very important, and that takes you to architecture, deploying tools that enable you to reuse existing designs with minimal rework when you point it to a new database technology. This is something which is related to IT actually. So again, these are 3 things basically which can help you to be more data ready. So I actually call it basically design for data actually, right? So you have to design your everything for the data, because data is going to be the future actually. This is going to be a great ride actually, I'm sure. And with this I actually complete my slides here. I'm open to questions and queries. Maybe you can unmute the participants who can ask me. Are you able to hear me? I see 20 participants. So Manjini, am I audible? You can unmute yourself. Manjini, are you able to hear me? I think you're on mute.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I just wanted to confirm whether I am audible. So I'm opening the floor for questions. Actually, if you have any questions, queries, definitely we can discuss. I can tell you the right pointers, basically how to mitigate these challenges for managing your customer data, starting with customer experience. Okay, how many of you here actually who are attending the session are aware about the enterprise architecture and the enterprise architecture practice? If you can type maybe in the chat box, or maybe if you are managing your customer data, or do you face such type? Do you agree with the point of view actually presented here? So there are no questions actually. So any feedbacks? I think some guys are raising their hands actually. Can you unmute them, Alok? From Divyanshu, okay, how can these principles be applied for B2B software product companies when the data generated by the enterprise client users are a small group, and so there might be sampling errors in the data generated by them? Okay, so that's a good question actually. So again, it directly relates basically to your data architecture and actually the application architecture. So it's all about how you try to capture your data at the point of transaction. So first identify the transaction node sources where the data is getting generated actually. Right. So first try to see what is that B2B software product company doing. It's trying to sell its software product basically, right? So business to business, right? So even though if the enterprise clients and users are a small group, but again you need to identify what are the points of transaction, and before the point of transaction you should also identify at the prospecting stage who are the guys who are meeting actually. You need to capture the entire interaction basically through your customer experience. It strongly depends on your feedback. Once you have the right feedback, you can start creating the customer journey. So again, you need to have a design thinking capability. Maybe somebody in a company can do your actually draw the customer experience. Whether that converts into a sale or not is the second thing actually. Right? And then so again the sampling error again can be there, but I think it's an opportunity in actually small type of data set. It can be more realistic rather than assumption. So I think a small data set brings some advantages with that, because it can be managed and you can actually do the testing over there. That's my answer actually. So try to identify your data points, try to see what are the parameters you want to capture for a sustained relationship with the customer, and then you manage it by drawing the right proper customer journey actually, giving them good experience, something which is good for them. I hope I answered your question. Okay. Thanks, Divyanshu.
Any more questions? From anywhere?
So guys, I actually typically come from with the IT environment actually, part of the data management group from Accenture actually. And as for the independent reports basically from Gartner and Forrester, the next revolution will be basically the data search actually. Right? So if you a very practical example which I want to give you as a success story which is going to be in future will be the Reliance Jio. Right, the Reliance Jio strategy is centered entirely around data actually. right? So I think they are moving on the right track. They have identified the right trigger for the next fourth industrial revolution. Okay, so Alok is asking during a new implementation project, at what stage a data architect should be involved? What role does data architect play in developing decision support report? This is a very important question, very good question actually, Alok. Thanks for asking that. The data architect actually should be involved from the day one of your initial engagement with the client, right? When you go for an orals or when you try to understand the business need. So if you ask me in the business analysis parlance, when you are trying to understand the business need, I think if you involve your data architect at that same time, I think a lot of things can be a lot of errors basically can be minimized, and you can accelerate basically the design and implementation of a solution actually for them. So to answer to your question, the data architect should be involved, that too at the initial stage, right? So if possible, if the data architect is there in your team and if you're serving a client, take them actually along with you in the orals. That's the right way, because the person can take on the technical questions related to data, can also showcase basically what is the data architecture and how it is going to give you the strategic means the capability to the company, right? And the role the data architect will be playing in decision support is the data architect through a superior design of data architecture is actually going to make the deal win actually, right? So that can be a deal maker for you rather. But that's the mistake most of the companies that do. They simply go to the client with business architects sitting around them actually who understand business. But you will agree with me that in today's world, you cannot isolate IT from the business, right? So IT enables business, and it is better actually if your data architect and your application architect actually goes along with your demo team or with your orals team to understand the business need and win the confidence of the client in the very first meeting. That is my point of view actually. That's the way I think. So in fact, if you have a person who can be classified as enterprise architect like me, right, who comes with the industry and who also understands enterprise architecture, that is the right person actually who can take on these type of questions and convince the client actually that what is good and what is bad for them. That is my answer actually. I hope you agree with me. Hello. Thanks. Divyanshu is again asking flexibility to improve, yet sometimes handles with data architecture, data model, how to deal with the situation. So the answer to this is basically how well you are architecting it actually. So again, if you are totally dependent on your UI, right, or the typical UX basically, whatever you can say, right. So the concentration should not be on UI basically. It should be typically on it. So you have to see what governs what comes first. Will the UI come first or will the data model come first, right? So I think even before that comes your business model and the operating model. First freeze your business architecture, freeze your operating models, right, and then you come to the data model, and then based on that your UI will be designed when you come to your application layer. The UI will fall as a point to be encountered into the application architecture. That is a common mistake which most of the companies do. They actually get governed and actually they design their solution as per the ask from stakeholders who are not fully educated on application architecture or these type of concepts, and then they simply go with the UI which never works well. So you should first work on the business architecture, convert it to a data model, test it, see it basically how strong it is it able to capture the entire data for an enterprise, and then you convert it to application architecture by giving the right UI. And then the last step will be to select the right technology actually which can run these applications and which will be able to run that data model. That is the right way to architect it. So I suggest the answer lies in the TOGAF enterprise architecture framework. If you can take out some time and make a reference to it, I think that will be something which will be actually exciting for you. I hope I answered the question. Okay, thanks, Divyanshu. Nice, very nice question. I am thankful actually the guys are asking the right questions which are required in the market means in today's world. These are the common questions actually which are faced today by architects. Okay, I think we have got another 12 minutes to go. If you have any other question, I will be happy to answer for you. If you are interested in any TOGAF certification or trainings, you can approach to me. I can actually help train you. Enterprise architecture, by the way, is going to be one of the skills which will be in demand for at least for the next 20 to 30 years, right? Whether you take it from IT or whether you take it from non-IT, architects are going to be the success, basically the foundation blocks for any organization to succeed actually. Right, because the application landscape has become so complex in so many organizations, basically it's not working. Unnecessary applications are running, so many apps are there, but it's not giving them any strategic advantage actually. So systems have to be made lean actually. So you need right architects. Okay. Any other questions? Alok is asking how a solution architect different from data architect. Okay, good. So Alok, this is a very common question I encounter in my enterprise architecture sessions. Okay, so now let me tell you there are different type of architects. The highest level architect is called an enterprise architect, and under the enterprise architect there are different stages of evolution to enterprise architect. The first one is called a business architect. The one which deals with the business processes level, actually the operating model, basically the business model, the operating model. I told you the POL, the processes, organogram decisions and the location decisions. These three building blocks come under your business architecture. That guy is called a business architect. The second one is called an information system architect, which has got two type of architects: application architect and data architect. So application architect and data architect, they are together basically called as information system architect. And the fourth category is called basically a technology architect, which deals with your technology architecture. Typically your infrastructure also comes over there. And a fifth category also comes, which is called basically a security architecture. Security architect basically. So a solution architect, basically I will call it generically an application architect actually. So this solution architect actually depends of what is the percentage of application weightage and what is the percentage for data. I have seen solution architects primarily they are application oriented, right? So generally most of the IT companies they have got different norms to call them SAs. They are called SAs basically. But actually solution architect is an invented basically word by these IT companies to manage their architects. The actual architecture terms you will find in the open groups. So the TOGAF model is enterprise architect, business architect, data architect, application architect and technology architect combined with security architect. These are the different architect positions. So I am also a solution architect, but I am more of an enterprise architect. I am also TOGAF certified actually, because an enterprise architect needs to have a very high level of proficiency in industry actually. Okay, good. So you are also solution architect. So you can evolve from being a solution architect to enterprise architect once you add that industry expertise in you. So which industry you actually come from? Is it financial services, automotive? Okay. So once you have a deep information of FMCG and auto, and you gain a considerable amount of proficiency, the day you are able to design the business model for any auto company or an FMCG client or any company, right? That is the right stage for you to evolve yourself to an enterprise architect, and the right way to prove it through a certification of either TOGAF or ZACMAN. Right? These are two widely used enterprise architecture frameworks. So I think for you, your journey from SA to okay. So if you're enrolled in business processes, I think you are the right candidate to become an enterprise architect. So you can test it by appearing for the certification in TOGAF. Actually, I think you should go for a formal TOGAF certification that will make you an enterprise architect technically, basically on the paper, which is accepted worldwide. That's good, actually, very good. So I hope you understand actually whatever I talked today. Okay. So Raj is asking, Raj Chatterjee, how is data architecture itself evolving to address the challenges of the current data explosion? Very good. Velocity, volume and variability with multiple channels. Exactly, this is right actually. So the data architecture basically addresses the 3 V's, right? So actually there are 5 V's. So velocity, volume, variability, variety, and then there is actually one more volume, velocity, variability, volume, and then there is one more, I think, right? Variety basically, variety, right? So if an organization is rightly data architected, basically that means you are running a successful data model under it. It is having the ability to capture your entire data elements rightly with the right properties, right? Then I think all these 5 V's basically related to data, and in fact these are 5 V's of supply chain management which I teach actually, right? So you are going to generate the right velocity of data. Your data systems basically the way they are architect will have the right capacity to throw the data basically to the right recipients. It is able to capture the right volume of data, and it is also able to capture your fragmented, unfragmented, siloed, structured, unstructured data basically that talks about the variability and the variety, right? So all these things are rightly managed once you are properly architecting your data basically. So the data architecture basically is evolving, right? Using your latest concepts basically again. So I think the answer lies itself basically. The data architecture is able to rightly actually mitigate all the 5 V's which you mentioned here actually. The 3 V's plus 2 other I told you. Do I answer you, Raj, actually? Okay, thanks. Okay. Any other questions? We can take another 5-6 minutes. So I also say that guys who are here basically data architects or as basically business architects or solution architects actually, and if you're working in any your industries typically say any of the organizations, right? So you should actually make the management aware that data is basically going to be the next differentiator basically for success of their businesses, and they have to spend money, they have to commit a considerable amount of resources towards enabling the right data architecture. And I'm telling you honestly, if they delay it, right, they will be the losers actually. So that is something I'm again emphasizing. Smart companies have recognized that. They have created huge data management capabilities. They are going with that. Data management, master data management, data governance, data quality. These are the next basically business challenge. These are next basically you can say the evolving technologies, right? And most of the companies are already spending on that actually. Okay, another 5 minutes. Any other question? I'll be happy to answer you. Okay. So how many of you here agree with that whatever Mr. Mukesh Ambani told in the NASSCOM summit 2 days back, that data is the next oil? Is he right? Is he wrong? Can anyone type in the chat box? And I think that will make the difference actually.